I would take a quick look. Yeah, I know.
We doing? We feeling all right so far today? I'm used to introducing bands and stuff, so forgive me. How you doing? My name is Miles Enzaldo. I am the music director and regional brand manager of K-Rock here in Los Angeles. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. K-Rock, right? We're doing what we can over here. I also am very pleased to host the brand new show on K-Rock, Flashback Sundays, which starts at 7 a.m. My man over here with the thumbs up. And K-Rock locals only as well, 10 o'clock at night. So when you think about who's going to introduce Behind the Music Barbie, that's me, the K-Rock person, right? I don't know much about Barbie, but I grew up with some sisters and we played with it a lot, and I'm thrilled to learn more about it right now. So I would like to introduce the panel and the moderator. First, the Vice President of Barbie Global Marketing and Brand Partnerships, Mattel. Please welcome Krista Berger to the stage, everybody. The Vice President, Global Brand Marketing, Barbie and Dolls Portfolio, Mattel, Mr. Nathan Baynard, sorry, my man. We had a whole rehearsal backstage too. I work at K-Rock, you know, we do what we can. We're trying. Also we're gonna have this moderated by Josefina, who is the Vice President of Sales, West Tees. Everybody, come on up. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and Josefina, the floor is yours. Cheers.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with Krista and Nathan, just to talk about Barbie Behind the Brand. We had a really engaging conversation to go through, so I have a bunch of questions. Before we jump in, though, I did want to kick off the stage with just a quick introduction for everyone. So I know it's great for the group to just hear a little bit more about your background and your roles. I can kick it off quickly and introduce myself. So I've been in media for 18 years, spanning search marketing, influencer content, YouTube. I've been at Teads a little over a year and a half. Teads, we are a global media platform. We enable brands like Barbie to connect with consumers across premium publisher environments, omni-channel. And Teads provides all the tech stack behind the scenes to enable them to connect with the right consumers at the right time, studio optimized creative to maximize the impact of that consumer touch point, and all the measurement behind the scenes. So there's a little bit of background on us. Krista and Nathan, did you want to jump in and provide a little bit of background on your roles at Barbie? And
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Krista. I have been at Mattel for 14 years now, and about half of that time has been spent on Barbie in some capacity. I've worked in a number of different brands and segments of the company. I've worked in 2 different campuses. It's a global organization. But the last 5 have really been spent driving the Barbie business in partnership with the man sitting here to my right, Mr. Nathan.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Nathan. I've worked at Mattel for, I guess, about 11 years. And I've worked on Barbie that whole time in some way, shape, or form. I came in, it's going to sound so archaic. And I helped launch our YouTube channel, right? Like that sounds so archaic and I sound so old. That's okay. And worked on a lot of content strategy and distribution. And then I moved into brand marketing a couple of years after I started there. And then I've been on the journey of the brand ever since. It's been quite a story. And then about, I would say 4 years ago, I got responsibility for the total dolls category, which includes a whole host of other brands like Monster High and Polly Pocket and soon to be Disney Princess and Frozen. So now have to do some portfolio management, but drive brand marketing, brand strategy, where we show up kind of outside of toy, but then also how we sort of activate from a marketing perspective to drive our foundational toy business.
And then my role in partnership with Nathan's is focused on product marketing specifically, and then also brand partnership. So anything that you see with a couture designer, anything that you see with sort of a celebrity partnership is run in concert with my team. And so the 2 of us together serve as sort of the thought leaders and stewards for this legacy brand.
Yeah.
just incredible. So based on some of our conversations, I know we've got 2 videos that we're going to show everyone to kind of kick off the stage. The first one, I think we can jump into that one.
Sure.
Hello, my name is Gwendid, and I'll be your professor today. Good morning, everyone. I'm your new coach. My name is Maddie. Nice to meet you. Had the most fantastic day in the office. We got that new business I wanted. Peter, the Triceratops, is 1 year old. The T-Rex, Sally, is 1,02,252 years old. Me, like a unicorn. Here. We can think and do lots of stuff with our brain. Now, does anybody know how big the brain is? Anybody? Sophia. It is medium. Medium.
So sweet. So it takes me back to my childhood of playing Barbies hours on end. But I think based on the video, I wanted just to hear a little bit behind that campaign.
Yeah.
And the narrative was really interesting to hear when we had our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about that work's 7 years old at this point, but I think it represents a moment in time that was sort of a key pivotal moment for the brand, where Barbie had lost her way a little bit. And we were seeing that in the sales of the business. We were seeing that in consumer response. And one of the interesting nuances of toys and the toy business, the old adage was you get kid and you win, right? So it was all nag factor. If a kid says they're going to buy it, eventually if they ask 10 times, the parent's going to buy it for them. So marketing wise, you're just talking to kids. But what we saw back in 2013, 2014 was that what used to be a real strength for the brand, which was that we were a multi-generational brand and parents would pass the brand down to their kids. Millennial moms weren't doing that anymore. And what we heard them saying was, well, I played with Barbie, but I would never give it to my daughter. Huge problem. So, and what we realized was we weren't actively engaging in a conversation with them. So everyone else was doing the talking about who we were and what we represented and what we looked like and all those conversations. And so there was a lot of work done around sort of laying the foundation of what do we stand for? What's our purpose? Why are we here? Going back to the beginning, honestly, of what the brand was, which is a whole other story that you could do a whole other talk about. But Ruth Handler was one of the co-founders of the company, an amazing woman, entrepreneur who literally ran the finances of the company, but couldn't write a check on behalf of it in 1959. Going back to the beginning of what the brand represented and the fact that it was about enabling empowerment for girls, storytelling for them, choices and careers and all of that. We realized we needed to remind these parents who had played with the brand what the play was all about and what the magic of it really was about. And that's what this spot was about. It was about reminding parents of this is actually what's happening when your kids are playing with Barbie. And so we launched that campaign back in 2015. And so the starting point of the turnaround was communication, because that's what we could impact first, and establishing our purpose, which is to inspire the limitless potential in every girl, and then baking that into everything that we're doing.
Yeah. And so if you want to inspire the limitless potential in every girl, you have to look like the world she sees around her. And that was one of the things where the brand had always been at the forefront of innovation. Barbie was the first fashion doll brand in the industry. We invented the category, and we sort of stopped innovating and stopped reflecting. Barbie is at her best when she is a reflection of culture and when she is in tune with the cultural zeitgeist. And so in 2015, we did the riskiest thing you can do with a brand that is 50 years old, which is to say we changed the product and we introduced new body types into the brand and finally changed the form factor. There's a wonderful documentary on Hulu called Tiny Shoulders, which takes you through that journey, because again, there's a lot I could talk about and not a lot of time in this. But if you think about something that sounds so simplistic, and when I first started at Mattel in 2008, the comments I'd get from like my aunts or my friends' parents were like, can't you do something about her body? And I'm like, no, I'm 23. I can't. But eventually someone did. And it was a massive undertaking, because you think about 50 years of systemic like tooling and system of play. We had to change every chair Barbie could sit in, every outfit to ensure that it could fit these new bodies. The size of her convertibles were all set to some initial measurements. And we wanted to create this universal system that was inclusive and diversive and reflective. And the brand took a really risky move, and we invested a lot on the back end to put that out because it was strategically the right thing to do. And since that start of that campaign and the introduction, the business has doubled. So certainly consumers voting with their wallet and with their time and their attention and reinforcing that diversity, representation, inclusion matters and is something they're willing to spend on.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was coming right off the backs of that last panel, which we got to hear bits and bobs of, but Krista's speaking to it. It takes work and it takes breaking out of existing systems and acknowledging, yeah, we're going to do things differently. We're going to look we now have an annual process that we're looking at the development of the world and what the world looks like across a variety of factors, whether that's race or physical attributes, et cetera, and making sure that the product line, Krista and her team, some of them are here, do an amazing job of keeping us accountable to those factors and making sure that we're walking the walk. We say that diversity and inclusion is a key tenet of the DNA of this brand now, and we've got to make sure that we're keeping ourselves honest and holding to those metrics that we've established for how we can do that as a brand.
So building upon that, I actually had a question that's perfect for this, which is connection and community are a new currency. So how's Barbie currently fostering the connection with your consumers and bringing together people that have different perspectives? Like, what are some of the other things you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's a build on kind of what we're talking about. We started this journey of kind of establishing the purpose and then really thinking about how we could blow that out across all of the key ownable touch points of the brand, right? So you think about from a communications perspective, the start of this campaign, you heard what Krista talked about with product. I think we have taken steps over the last few years now that the platform of the brand has increased even bigger, the success of the sales, et cetera. We started a social mission, which is ultimately about, leveling the playing field for girls. We partner with a variety of nonprofits. We raise funds every year. It's called the Dream Gap Project. Go check it out online. Please donate. Create moments in time around key cultural conversations, whether that's International Women's Day or National Day of the Girl, where we can participate in that conversation around what's going on with girls and women and what we can do to ultimately be a part of the change and be part of that conversation. We develop a whole host of amazing products, content, edutainment for kids that ultimately can continue to participate in that conversation, as well as conversations around D&I, et cetera. Really critical piece of, I think, being a brand today. You've heard all the stats, consumers want to buy from brands that align to the values that they have. I think our stat is something like 70% more likely to purchase from a brand that aligns with their values. So I think the difference in where we spend our time from a marketing perspective and how we think about that as a critical piece of our activity has ratcheted up at such a higher level than when I started on the business 10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah. And in our industry, the average life of a brand is 5 years. And yet we sit here today with a brand that is 63 years young. Barbie looks great for her age.
And number one in the industry the last 2 years.
Yeah,
just
just throwing that out.
Yeah.
And not something we take for granted.
No.
It was hard earned. But as you deal with something like that, everybody's got a Barbie story, and we're dealing with multi-generations who've experienced the brand, who've grown up with the brand, who played with the brand, who are now gift givers or purchase occasion givers or parents within the household of kids who are of that age. And then you have this interesting phenomenon where Barbie is in of herself a personality, an influence, a celebrity, if you will. And so at any given time, we are talking to, one of the initial generations that Barbie touched. We are talking to parents who recently touched the brand. We are talking to kids who are entering the brand for the first time. And then we are dealing with Barbie as a celebrity and an icon, influencing culture and participating in certain trends in and of itself. And so the marketing calendar is complex and layered, and we are often trying to ensure, though, that consistency and purpose is the North Star for each of those things. So wanting to make sure that thread is there, that the product reflects it. We've got a commitment to be putting out X number of sheroes and role models for girls. We believe that if you can see it, you can be it. And so our careers line is so important in that sense. And so it's reflected in toy, but then so are our partnerships and how we use that from a vetting process. And sometimes those two things beautifully coincide together. So earlier this summer, we released our latest Inspiring Women doll of Dr. Jane Goodall, which was an amazing opportunity. The doll is made of ocean-bound plastic and is a recyclable fashion doll. The package is entirely cardboard and bio-based. So it is a beautiful marriage of our ability to participate in culture to help further the commitment that our company Mattel has made to further our eco footprint by 2030, and then also provide edutainment and connect with culture of this woman of such iconic status that's so relevant for, you know, all of those generations.
I mean, and I think you hit on it so beautifully. The stories piece is a really interesting part. You know, these stories, you talk to almost anybody you're going to partner with, they have a story about the brand. And sometimes it's really powerful and personal. We honored Laverne Cox with a doll earlier this year, and her story and what Barbie represented to her and her journey. I mean, I'm going to tear up talking about it, but you know, was denied access to the product as a kid, and now buys a Barbie doll for herself every year on her birthday as a like commemoration of sort of where she's at in her journey. And like being able to like now amplify that story as part of honoring her is just like a really beautiful moment. So I think that piece of it, and sort of it's a powerful piece, and one that, again, we are eternally paranoid given where we've been on the brand, but always looking at, there's such a power in having generations of consumers who've grown up with your brand. And if you can unlock and tap into those natural stories, it's a beautiful way to continue to reinforce and build that community around your brand.
Yeah.
To your sort of initial question.
So one of the areas when we were talking earlier, the Cardiff research, I thought was fascinating, and how it relates back to a doll can help change the world. I know we have a second video.
Yeah.
I think that's good to set the stage for this next part.
Mouse. Kim is a young girl who goes to school in the morning. Any questions? Welcome to our house. I like your dog. It's cute. Hi, Mom.
Yes, that is a very good point.
I mean, I'm a mom of 3, and that I'm like, don't cry. It's so sweet. And so I wanted to hear a little bit about the research. I think it's great for everyone to hear about the research.
Yeah, this all started from the standpoint of, you know, for those of us who work in dolls and work in the category and work on the brand, I mean, we believe our products are doing good for kids, you know, and we understand sort of the impact that they can have, but we had never really partnered with a research organization on really understanding what that was. So back in 2019, we started a partnership with Cardiff University out of the UK in their neuroscience department, and literally they did a study on looking at what happens in the brain while kids are playing with dolls. And what it showed is that it activates the same sort of center in the brain that allows for developing social emotional skills like empathy. And so that was sort of the inspiration for this brief, was basically, you know, if a doll can help generate empathy, particularly at a time like now, you know, maybe a doll can help change the world. And so that was sort of the foundational thing. And one of the things that we've seen with parents, and sort of, again, continuing to build their perception and their affinity for the brand, is one of the things that they want to know is that the products they're giving their kids have positive impacts on them, right? So again, it speaks to that. But yeah, so we have a multi-year partnership with them. They're amazing partners. There's an amazing doctor named Sarah Gerson, who's actually American, but works out of there, who's led the study and also has an amazing Barbie story as well that we were able to amplify as part of it. But this is a sort of continued campaign that we started back in, I guess it was just last year. Yeah, hard to believe. But it's been a great opportunity to, again, sort of engage in a very sort of new and specific conversation about scientific benefits, but also a great way to celebrate kind of where the brand is at today and that impact.
And I think as we, you know, we opened by talking about what we call Imagine the Possibilities, that first campaign, and then you look at it today, you know, the heart of both of those was insights driven. And so as we sit here today about how, you know, how do you grow brands? How do you continue to innovate, connect with culture? We go back we are consumer and data obsessed, because what led to that first campaign, which was award winning and highly successful, and the POS attribution to it is impressive. But it came from the fact that, again, like, parents had forgotten what the benefit of playing with dolls was. They didn't know who Barbie was, and they told us what we needed to do to help fix that. You know, we know through studying today, again, that what parents are looking for, their biggest concerns for their kids. We're obsessed with studying sort of family dynamics and generational concerns as they look to grow up kids into highly functioning adults. And we knew that empathy is one of not only the biggest concerns and things that parents want to see develop in their kids more than academic skills today. But we also know that those skills, those social emotional skills, are ones that are predicted to be higher indications of success into adulthood. And so sort of validating what we believed was the power of our brand and then putting it out there. And if you'll notice, like, we said a doll can help change the world. We didn't say a Barbie can help change the world. That is actually a category insight. But we believe it is an important one. And as a category leader, it is our duty to continue to innovate and educate and help bring everybody along with us. But that journey and those insights that led to the first campaign, that have led to the second campaign, that will ultimately lead to the third campaign, come back from studying the consumer and then ensuring that we are addressing and tackling those heads on.
I love that. I just feel like it's so inspiring, the power and the positive impact that Barbie is making, not just on little kids, but like on society. It's, I don't know. It's, so I'm also very insight and data. I'm like a data nerd and insight nerd. So one of the areas we talked about that's also data, and I'm very curious because it's timely, is about the pandemic. So if you think about the last few years and how consumer purchase behavior, path to purchase has changed during the pandemic, and then you think about purchasing a doll or a toy during that time frame, would love to better look into Barbie specifically, like, how have your marketing strategies changed? What have you done to connect with consumers and make sure you're connecting with consumers across the ever-changing landscape of consumer touch points?
Product. Okay. So that was, the pandemic is rough for us all. Because as the marketing team, we're sitting there trying to figure out how we're adapting and what we're doing from our homes, trapped inside with our families. So, interesting time for everybody. We're survivors. But, when we were sitting there thinking about this, the purchasing, the retail landscape was, changed overnight. We had known that e-com was going to accelerate. We had projections, we had numbers, and by 2020, we were delivering 2025 levels of a predicted shift in e-com to brick and mortar sales. So it accelerated that fast for our industry. And while we had always sort of been digitally minded as a corporation, and we had all these great e-com assets, we had to ratchet that up really, really fast and put our support there. We had to change our media mix model, but more importantly, we had to ensure that we could show up where the consumer was. And so that meant touching literally everything from the marketing assets that we were briefing and developing on to literally changing how we produce certain products and toys. So we moved UPC codes to the front of our boxes so that buy online, pick up in store today, someone could scan, know it was in retail and move in. Those were little changes that we had to have that insight in to be able to enact immediately, try and make it a seamless experience for the consumer who is still experiencing something on shelf. But, it changed everything from distribution model to how we were showing up, then to how we were advertising when and where.
Yeah, I mean, we went from a very seasonal business, that before was the lion's share of it was at holiday time and a little bit at Easter, to a full year business, right? For those of you who have kids, I have 2 little ones. I mean, buying, and honestly, big ticket items that used to only sell at Christmas time or Hanukkah time or whatever you celebrate towards the end of the year, became a Tuesday. It's like, I'm feeling bad about my kid being locked in the house for months. I'm going to buy him a dream house, right? So that was a radical shift in the industry. And so an item that we used to advertise the same 8 weeks every year during the hard 8, whatever, all of a sudden we were running that media year round because of the sales that we were seeing. And so that was a pretty drastic shift. And then, I mean, obviously we were seeing the spikes in content engagement from a digital perspective and streaming and all of that stuff. So we tried to capitalize on that as best we could to try to meet our consumers with where they were spending a lot more of their time all of a sudden. So certainly there were shifts in both our content strategy and our investment from a media perspective into where we were reaching consumers. But I mean, the benefit to us was, and we certainly got a benefit out of it, was, established brands won during that time period for a couple of reasons. One, families weren't going to stores anymore, so kids weren't running around seeing random things and nagging, right? It became just like, well, what am I going to get my kid? I'll get him a Barbie because they know what that is, right? So all of a sudden, parents who used to be a secondary influence on toy purchase became the primary influence, and so established brands really worked. I have a lot of new brands that failed in that period that we tried to launch, but Barbie really worked, and some of our other established brands like Polly Pocket also worked because consumers, and purchasers in particular, knew them. So we got a lot of benefit out of that. But I think the other shift that happened, and it sort of ties back to the video that you just shared, is for parents who are at home, I'll admit it, we're always looking for a babysitter for our kids. So when I give them something to do, I'm like, what can I go get done while I give you this to do? And I'm not necessarily going to sit here and watch what you're doing. And so a lot of parents today, they don't know what's happening when their kids are playing, right? They are trying to do their best to do the rest of all the 800 jobs that they're trying to do, right? But all of us being locked at home with our kids, I certainly spent a ton more time with my kids over the last 2 years than I would have if I'd been in the office. And the benefit to us is parents saw more of what play was, and they understood it at a deeper level than they typically have for the last several years. And they also realized their kids are spending a lot of time on screens, and maybe they want to spend some more time imagining and going back to traditional play. And, we've got an ad that shows that there's some real benefit in doing that. So I think it's helped lift the perception of our whole industry in a lot of ways because of what's happened. It's reminded people of what that power is.
Yeah. So with Barbie being such an established brand, I think one of the things was just keeping, you mentioned like your calendar for cultural relevance and moments, like, could you give us a little bit more surrounding like, how do you ensure that you're staying like culturally relevant at the heart of everything, while also keeping those consumers who are very loyal to the brand? Like, what is that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I'll tell you is that at any given time, the team that is working on Barbie is working on Barbie. I'll give you an example for now. We're actively managing the year end of 22. We have just sort of closed out the planning. We've got a toy fair going on at our showroom in El Segundo right now for fall 2023. And we are showing the first look at the spring 2024 line in 4 weeks. So we work aggressively ahead. And there is an opportunity in doing that real-time management to consistently analyze and learn from the milestones that you've had, adjust for the year ahead, and then plan them better into the one that's coming. And so it's an aggressive 3-year strategy plan where you've got a lot of hands touching. The joke sort of internally is, it takes a village, but with Barbie, it takes like 3 citywide blocks to keep that gal running. She's got a really talented team behind her. And we know, we've seen it. She shows up really consistently in a lot of places, and there's some annual expectation for her to do it. And then we're always looking to sort of subvert expectations. I think that is the thing, is you're a category leader, is if you don't innovate and you don't continue to surprise people with what you're capable of, that is when you leave room for competition to come in and prove that you're not relevant anymore. And as we said, we both entered the brand at a time when we weren't relevant and we weren't participating in those cultural conversations. And look, there are moments where we are absent when we should have been loud, or we miss it, and times when we show up brilliantly. And next summer will be one of those times, July 21st, 2023, Barbie the movie comes out, get ready. And that'll be a huge cultural moment. And we spend a lot of time right now getting ready for that, because it'll be the single biggest brand spend in this brand 63-year history. And so wanting to make sure that we are, getting ready for the foundation that has been laid, particularly over the last 7 to 8 years of the purposeful foundation, establishing Barbie as a role model, being the number one gift choice for parents. Those are things, like we said, that we do not take them for granted. You will not meet 2 more paranoid people and yet wanting to make sure we capitalize at every opportunity so that foundation becomes so strong that nothing could break it down again.
I'll also just, I agree with everything you said. The other thing I think that we've gotten sophisticated at is understanding the levers that we have to pull and what's the timeline on them, right? So to your earlier question about calendar, we've got amazing tentpole things that are in development that take years, sometimes decades, like the movie July 21st. That take time to come to fruition, right? And you've got these tent poles that you're building out in front, right? Product is one of them. It takes, 12 to 18 months. And so we've got levers that we can pull that can accomplish certain objectives in terms of relevance. And then we have shorter term things that we can do to ultimately drive that power, whether it's through partnerships or, more one of a kind executions, et cetera. So I think we've gotten more sophisticated at how we can think about those levers and kind of always optimize the calendar based on how we're feeling the brand is doing.
Yeah. And then we've also just built up our social presence to such a point that we can respond in real time and participate in those cultural conversations in a more meaningful, immediate way. We can engage with consumers much more rapidly through that, or when something is obviously trending or a hot topic on social, or there's an unexpected moment in history, we can show up in a way that is authentic and appropriate for Barbie to be participating in.
I could keep talking to you two for hours. So I know we only have 3 minutes left. If there's a question from the audience, if there's anyone that would like to ask something, I think we could give room for a question maybe too. Yes.
So my name is Malia James. I'm a marketeer and a mother. A mother of a 1-year-old. She's going to say, like I said, I'm leaving out. What you guys produce, it's a toy, but what my daughter plays with is not a toy, because it really speaks to her representation. And I grew up in the 80s, I'm not going to age myself, but I grew up in the 80s. And I didn't have a dog that looked like her.
Yeah.
And I think my parents were in the stigma, and I remember Barbie's being around, but Barbie didn't release, so I didn't have Barbie. And so as a mother, I told myself, well, my daughter's not going to have Barbie. But sitting here today, now I'm like, I'm going to rethink Barbie for my child. So just thank you guys for the work that you're doing. It's so important for her to see herself in what she's playing with. And I was under the perception that Barbie's was playing house. But now you have her playing a career and playing revolutionary and playing, game changer. And I just want to applaud you all for that. And my question is, as a big mom, and I don't have a crystal ball to know who my daughter will be in 2 years. You already know what you're doing in fall. How do you guys come up 2 years ahead? Like, how do you guesstimate? I guess also in a way you're also the trendsetter and you're kind of sticking fun that this is what we do to trend, but how do you guys 2 years ahead develop what your market is going to be? What's going to be design?
First of all, I got to take a moment because we have some team members in the audience, and I hope you all heard and felt that the way that we did. We will take that message back. Thank you. That is why we work so hard 2 years ahead from here. But it's a really cheeky answer. But did you see The Devil Wears Prada? So that whole moment where Miranda's talking about the blue and how that blue that you're wearing, that's a real thing, you guys. So we are a fashion doll brand. And so in terms of aesthetics, we really do study fashion culture like that. We have we launched a partnership with Balmain earlier this year. We are participating in couture. We can anticipate what is going to be fashionable to the masses. It's a sophisticated element that far out. And we have people who study fashion design who work in-house at Mattel. And then from a trends perspective, YouTube has taught everybody a lot over the last 5 years, right? These little kids who are now make way more money than I'll ever make by unboxing and unwrapping and participating and fidget toys and popping. And, we are consumer obsessed, and we have a world-class insights team and research and development facility in-house and at multiple campuses around the globe, where we're often bringing in kids, showing them toys, we're listening to them, we're letting them tell us. And so we use sort of the art and the science of that data, that trend driven. And then there is also the gut aspect of it. There are some pieces of play that are universal. I've got 2 little ones. They surprise me all of the time with what comes out of their mouths and their imaginations, but play is fundamental, play is universal, and the play is global. And so as we think about doing that, there is a beautiful ubiquity in that and how you can speak to a global audience by those sort of fundamental truths that we try and always remind ourselves of.
I would also add something that shifted back in that time was we opened ourselves up in a new way. And we brought external people into the conversation. And we still do that today. We have amazing sort of cultural consultants. We have an advisory council of amazing, diverse women and men that we share our plans with, because we never want to get so insular again to where we're not. There was, there's a lot of concern back then about security, and listen, we have all those concerns still, and IP protection and whatever. And I think in some ways that hurt the teams back then because we weren't bringing people into the conversation. And then to Krista's point, we're obviously always watching what's going on all the key platforms and what's going on from a cultural conversation perspective, just on the platforms we're engaging ourselves. But I think we've also brought in, and every time we have a DAW where we're representing a new community, we've done amazing work partnering with amazing organizations to bring those people to the table to be part of the conversation where we don't have those communities represented on the team or as part of, the collective folks who are working on it. So I think that's something else that we've also built into the process that has also kept us more honest and authentic to what's going on culturally.
And then the final note in terms of that is also as consumers, you're voting with every purchase you make. And, our retail partners hold a lot of sway and influence and power to all the manufacturers in my industry and without. And, we've proven as a society that like diverse brands with purpose are the ones that we want to spend on. That's what we've been talking about. And so, as long as that continues, they come to the table and also hold all of their manufacturing partners accountable, right? Like we are showing them the line a year and a half out. If we weren't showing up in a good way, they would tell us. And we would be expected to change it. It's tied to our fiscal performance, right? That's the power of purpose and profit. And when you can get both of those things working in harmony, it's sort of where you unlock the magic as a marketer and, what's going to continue to fuel this brand.
Well, this has been incredible. And honestly, it's an honor to get to just speak with you in this group. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Lovely conversation.
Okay, so am I on here? Yeah, we have a break coming up here in 15-minute break, and then 2 more panels, happy hour, and then we have a band. So stick around for that. Also, if you live in LA and you're interested, on October 6th, we probably have the hottest mayor race that's going on right now, right in Los Angeles. They will be debating right here on this stage. So find someone from Audacy, and if you want to come watch Caruso and Karen Bass debate, it's gonna be right here, or you can listen on KNX. Enjoy the break. We'll be back 15 minutes. We'll see you soon.
high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new life for me. Ooh, and I'm feeling good, 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 good.
All right, everyone, if we could start heading back into the sound space, we're going to get started with our next session very soon. Again, start heading back into the sound space. Thank you.
You know
We need everybody to come back into the sound space so we can get going with the program, please. Thanks. Try it again. As it before. Who's doing the mic?
We roll. We're waiting for people to come in.
Yeah. I guess they said that they didn't hear it out there. Who? Can you put this on out there? Thanks. I thought it was. Is it now? If you guys can come back into the sound space, whoop. Yes, everybody. Hello. Oh, come on back into the sound space. We're ready to start the program. Thank you.
Yeah. This one is a little bit. Moderator? Oh, no. No, let's break it. Yeah, okay. Well, I used to look at this. Great. We got a front seat for you. We can just don't have to kind of stretch it out. I got. Well, team.
Hey, you got everybody back in? Hello. Hi. If you haven't yet, everybody come back in. Everybody's refreshed, ready for the next half here. Hi, my name is Greg Sims. I do the afternoon radio show on K Earth 101. It is exactly right upstairs from this thing. So whenever there's a band here, I can definitely hear the thumping upstairs. I also do the morning show on our other station in San Diego called Sunny 98.1. Those are just two of the things I do here for the company, as well as my little thing on the side I do. About a year and a half ago, I started a little TikTok and Instagram page called Grub with Greg. Right here, Grub with Greg. And I love food. Who loves food, right? Everybody. So it's basically was just an excuse for me to go around town and get free food. Not really, but it's fun. I love helping out, especially mom and pop little businesses that need help. And then it's always fun to step inside of one of the big brands who we're going to hear more about here in a second. With Blaze Pizza. As a matter of fact, I was there last night. Today, and by the way, today just happens to be National Cheese Pizza Day. So with my videos, I always try to go one step beyond that, which you're going to see right now, and Jake's going to roll that. I thought, let's go crazy at Blaze Pizza tonight. Living on the edge. Classic red sauce, garlic pesto, white cream sauce, spicy red sauce, mozzarella, goat cheese, parmesan, gorgonzola, ricotta, feta, chicken, sausage, ham, meatballs, bacon, salami, mushrooms, black olives, cilantro, kalamata, red onions, tomatoes, banana peppers, jalapenos, artichoke hearts, green bell peppers, pineapple, roasted garlic, roasted red peppers, crushed garlic, sea salt, oregano. Throw it in the oven. A few minutes later, there it is. Every single one of their toppings on one pizza plus a drink, $15.84. It's heavy, the crust crispy, all the flavors play well together. I call this one the kamikaze at Blaze Pizza. Whew. That's not on their menu. I just made it up, but we'll have to ask our guest here in a second if $15.84, if I was charged. Oh, that seems like it was pretty cheap to me. Wow. I mean, great. It was delicious. I finished it off for breakfast this morning too. So, we all know how important social media is to marketing, to radio, to everything in life. It can literally, make or break a business. I want to bring up two of our first panelists here. Our moderator, his name is Stephen Elliott, Vice President of Client Development and Partnership of Rad AI. Come on up. And Stephen, I'd like to give you a Grub with Greg hat. There you go. All right. And today we'll be hearing from the CMO of Blaze Pizza, where I was just at last night. Everybody, please give it up for Vince Schwakowski. Your hair is very nice, Vince. You don't have to put that on right now. You don't have to put it on right now.
I will wear it.
Yeah. So in addition to doing social media, like I just mentioned, I'm also on the radio. So we do lots of contests. I've got one more hat to give away. And I'm going to give this to the first caller, since that's how we do things on the radio, caller 1, caller 10. So the first person to call me on my cell phone, the number will win this hat. The number is 858-337. Nobody wants the hat. No one's taking out their phones. I know. Maybe if I was as handsome as Brew, I would have 1 million followers by now. But okay, 858-337-9072. 858-337-9072. Caller 1. Hello, who is this? It's you. Who are you? Katie. Where are you calling from, Katie? Okay, all right. You want a hat. Come on up and get it, Katie. Let's give it up for Katie. There you go. Thank you guys for being here. Enjoy the panelists and have a great time. Thank you.
Test. Hi. Yeah, great. Well, Vincent, great to meet you in person now. Yeah. And I figured let's start with an easy one. Means they're going to get harder. Just jump right into it. Today's been an incredible session. As I was sharing, each session has been so unique and building on each other. And I think now after lunch, we're ready to talk a little bit about some Blaze Pizza. And so if we were at one of the local spots, one of your local locations, what would you be ordering right now? Well, I would not be ordering the pizza that we just saw. The kamikaze? I would not be ordering the kamikaze, no. So interesting fact, I don't eat gluten and I don't eat dairy, and I'm the chief marketing officer for a pizza company. So I'd be ordering our gluten-free crust with our house-made red sauce, no cheese, our Italian sausage, Kalamata olives. I'd probably throw some basil on today, an olive oil drizzle, and some arugula to finish it off. So, all right. I would just second that. I'll skip the art lovers then. And I mean, it's been incredible getting to know you a little bit and just seeing your background. It was fun because I too have a non-traditional background in the space, and you're cresting now just over 2 years. Mm-hmm. And as I thought about that, I have a unique insight into the brand. As I mentioned, about 3.5 years ago, I was speaking with some of the other leadership. And along the way, I've seen the change and felt it and thought about it. 2 years before you joined, Blaze was in a very unique spot. And then this world event happens, a pandemic, and insert Vincent. basically. So mind sharing, when you walked into Blaze or when you joined them, what was the state of Blaze at that time in your role?
Sure. I would highly recommend no one join a restaurant company in the midst of a pandemic. So yeah, when I walked in, all the lights were off in the office. It was myself and a CEO across like opposite sides of the board table, like 12 feet apart, wearing masks and, going like, oh shit, what are we going to do over here? But when I joined a marketing team of 3, a brand that had originally been a 90+% walk in down the line type of business with very, very little digital presence. And a brand that had been experiencing some stagnation even pre-COVID. And so joined with a big challenge on my hands. The brand was about 8 years old when I started, founded by marketers who had a really great concept, but hadn't necessarily articulated things from sort of a core value proposition, emotional and sort of a rational value proposition as well. So came into a lot of interesting challenges, particularly as a third of our restaurants are in the state of California. And every week it was like, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed. So it was a little bit harder to do a lot of more long-term planning, but also a lot of great opportunity, right? There was like a huge blank slate that existed out there for how we could really transform this brand and this business, how we could really go from digital as sort of an afterthought to digitally enabled, how we could think about how we could build a more emotional value proposition and brand promise for all of our guests. And then the other key thing was, again, thinking through the brand as a whole, particularly from not only the underlying platform, but then how we were representing that visually through everything from social media to what we're finalizing right now is an entirely new visual identity as well.
Yeah, and I want to click into that a little bit. I loved when we were talking about joy.
Mm-hmm.
And the color, and then mind sharing a little bit about that, like free to be you and how it's functional and emotional.
Yeah. So what we did was, when I started at Blaze, the brand had never once done primary consumer research. Like, just think about that. Like, they'd never done a focus group. They had never done like a panel, anything. So that was the first thing. I was like, well, we should probably talk to our guests and figure out what they want, what they love, what they don't love. And that started an entire process to come up with a new brand platform. We started with a brand promise. Blaze's new brand promise, which we launched internally this past March, is free to be you. And so the reason why that pizza was only $15 with a drink with 47 toppings on top, not good profitability wise for me. So please don't order that pizza. But why that is because we don't nickel and dime you. You come into Blaze, you can build your own pizza, you can put anything you want on, and you're not going to be charged for all those extra toppings. So there is this freedom to create. There is this freedom to add whatever it is that you want and not have to think about being nickel and dime. So free to be you is very much a functional value proposition. But what free to be you also allows us to do is go into a much more emotional type of space. So now I can start talking about how you're free to be yourself. Come as you are. That goes into all sorts of different things with diversity, inclusivity, but it's really just around more broadly around for the unique individual that exists inside of all of us and how I, as a brand, can speak to you and how I can then speak to you and speak to you and speak to you and every single person in this room in a little bit of a different way. And so that really allowed us to go much more into an emotional territory. And with that brand promise of free to be you at our core, we then built out every other aspect of our brand platform. And so again, a lot of times when marketers do this, I've built like 7 or so brands, I think, in my career, or reimagined some failing brands in my career. People kind of do things in little vacuums. And I wanted to be really, really careful that we kept the brand promise at front and center for this. And so it even then okay, became what do we think about values? And one of the values we talked about was around igniting joy, because just think about pizza for a second, right? And this came through in our research. Pizza really brings up fond memories for people, a lot of childhood memories, like after a sports game or, a pizza party or things like that. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's not exactly thinking about that as like, oh yeah, let me have date night at a Blaze Pizza, right? Because you're like, no, that's why I'm gonna like bring my kid, or a soccer game. But there was definitely a lot of joyful moments. And so and when we think about free to be you, what is the relationship that we want to have with our customer? Igniting joy was one of those brand values. And I have 3 other values and pillars and all sorts of other things that are a part of this platform. But then again, taking that one step further, and what you'll see when the new Blaze identity rolls out is, what is the color that represents joy? So think about it for a second. Hopefully you're all thinking yellow, right? Like sunshine, joy, like happy, like the little happy face emojis, like they're all yellow. So yellow is not a Blaze color right now. It will be in the new brand identity. And it's also like highlighter yellow, just because I wanted to really like stand out and look a little bit different. But so we've really taken a very purposeful approach to every single aspect of what we're doing with the brand. We're thinking about everything from, I appreciated the panel up here earlier that was around diversity, and we were talking backstage a little bit, and I was saying how it really resonated with me when we were talking about marketing around Pride this past June, and I said to the team, as they all were like, well, we should do this and we should do this social post, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like this falls so flat for us as a brand. We're not doing enough. Like this isn't where we need to be going, because if I feel like I'm lying by putting all this stuff out there. And free to be you, yes, it so much ties to this, but we're not doing enough. And so we actually took a very different approach, and we said, okay, we spoke as an executive team, et cetera. I was like, we need to do something internal. So we actually ended up doing something that was much more internal facing with all of our team members across all of our restaurants. We did Pride packs, we did Pride parties, we did all of these opportunities to celebrate them as individuals that went way beyond LGBTQ, right? It was more about them and the fact that we were embracing them as individuals, Pride Month being a part of it, and then using that as a launch pad for how we're now putting other initiatives in place for our internal team members, again, all being driven by that brand promise. Then once I'm actually legitimately doing things and I feel good and proud about what we're doing, then I'll feel great about going external, right? And actually putting that into marketing and talking to consumers. But again, this idea of this brand promise is really meant to be the North Star for every single thing that we're doing, from hiring decisions to, like, I question our HR team on benefits packages that we're giving people, like really a lot of the different types of things. So it's been a journey that has been a hard journey, but I think we're finally at a point as a brand, and by no means are we perfect. We still have a lot of work to do, but now we're finally at this point where this brand promise is starting to kind of make headway and sort of permeate the entirety of the business.
Yeah. And not that you need any more validation yet. I really appreciated when we connected, you shared how with the free to be you can't say that and then have certain employees that you're excluding. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about the Pride until 10 minutes ago. And to hear you truly live that and you're really leading that. And then Joy, I thought of Inside Out, the character, what color is she?
Yeah.
And us being fathers of 2 little girls, I've seen that movie more than enough. And yet it's interesting because I think that thought process is a derivative of maybe your background. And I don't think you have the most traditional background or a career path.
Yeah, probably not. So the first time I had marketing in my title was when I became a chief marketing officer. So my background, I actually started as a management consultant at BCG, where we sell or sold, they still sell, I don't sell anymore, overpriced $2 to $5 million projects to big companies who could pay people to come in and like make 400-page PowerPoint decks. And I was the guy who did a bunch of Excel analysis, a lot of consumer research, and 400-page PowerPoint decks. That's how I started my career. But I worked on primarily consumer-facing brands. So I worked on America's largest retail coffee brands that you might be familiar with. I worked on a very large clothing retailer based in San Francisco who's having some drama with Kanye West at the moment. So those were a lot of my clients, and but working on a lot of totally different things that were unrelated to marketing. Did a little sprint at America's largest milk company, and then spent a big portion of my career at Hilton. But when I was at Hilton, again, I wasn't in marketing. I built out their whole brand strategy group, and I first built out a strategy team, then I built out a guest experience team, an insights and research team, an analytics team, and again, worked with marketing teams, but a lot of my work was on building new brands or repositioning existing brands. So taking like Waldorf Astoria, hopefully no one at Hilton's here today, and taking it from like it's like not a real luxury brand, and saying like, how are we going to compete with Four Seasons, right? Or taking Hampton Inn and how do we bring that to China? Or personally oversaw and developed brands like what's now Motto by Hilton, Canopy by Hilton, et cetera. And in those types of things, it was everything from digital to social media, go-to-market strategy. I was selling franchises with our development team. I picked the shampoo that went into the showers for some of the hotels that you hopefully are all staying in. Personally tried all the sheets like on my bed for like a month at a time. So that's when I really, really appreciated how important the details around brand are, and how brand is not just a logo or what advertising campaign you do. It's every single touch point, and in hotels it's literally touch points, right? Like your sheets, the people, do they say hello sir or hey dude when you walk in, right? So those are all really, really big components of that, and did that for a really long time, and then was like, all right, now I want to go do something a little bit smaller. When you're at a multi-billion-dollar company, it's super fun because you get a lot of resources and budgets and things like that. But then I actually came out to Los Angeles to work for a company you guys may all know and remember called ArcLight Cinemas. And so I was at ArcLight. I was their first ever CMO, brought on to completely reimagine the ArcLight experience, fully rebrand, digital, complete new strategy and transformation, and launched a 9-month marketing campaign on March 3rd of 2020. Went on vacation, the borders closed, came back, movie theaters were closed, offices were closed, and and then ArcLight filed for Chapter 7. So I then joined Blaze Pizza. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here. But yeah, so my background, I did not come up through the sort of traditional, I wasn't at P&G or Kraft in sort of a brand management program. I never worked on the agency side. Really came from a much more sort of analytical research strategic base than more on sort of the creative or the traditional marketing side.
Yeah, and I think that's lent you very well with what you've done at Blaze. As I said, just feeling it. And then when we connected to here, you transformed what they thought was an app now to an app, and then building out that platform, getting that first party data, and then actionizing that data into what you've done. And I think the article I saw, you helped correct me that you're going to go from 340 locations up to like 800 in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get to 800, but we are entering into a pretty big growth phase, both with our existing markets and our existing franchisees, and now actively expanding into new markets, looking at international markets, looking into new states. So yeah, like we're opening a Blaze Pizza in Alaska. Like we're. But the wonderful thing about pizza's pretty universal. Like, tell me someone who doesn't, like, you're thinking about it right now. You're like, I could actually go for a pizza. You're like, if I didn't just eat lunch, I'd be like, yeah, I'd go get a pizza right now. So that's the beauty of our brand and our product, is that we are universally loved, like in all countries by all people. And so that does give us a lot of opportunities, particularly with this new brand platform, to go into our next phase of growth.
It's incredible to hear how you've innovated so much in 2 years. And yet, if you were to extend the timeline out in 5 years, I'll say you've laid the foundation now for 3 more years of scaled innovation, and you have a lot more ahead, it seems like.
Yeah, so I mean, again, like we're a franchise, relatively small business, right? So like some of it is because you need to do certain steps first before you get to the other, and some of the other things are because like I don't have money to do things. So we're pretty scrappy, and yeah, there's definitely going to be this sort of ongoing roadmap on all things. It's on the brand itself, it's on what we're doing with digital, it's on how we think about product, and you know, that I think makes the brand a really exciting place to visit, to you know, to be on the journey with us, to work for, because it's there's definitely no 2 days that are alike at Place Pizza.
Right. And speaking of which, I want to end with just one point, and then I think we have time just for a few questions. Is remember the "Will you pizza me" story? You mind kind of giving a summary? The one girl that's "Will you pizza me"?
Oh yeah. So you know, so again, and it's interesting because when we were backstage and talking about the TikTok, we had already commented and responded to the TikTok. But
Amazing. Yeah.
one of the big things that we've done, and one of the ways, again, that because I don't have like giant budgets to do a lot of stuff, we've actually really focused a lot on social media as a brand, and particularly on TikTok recently. And when you think about Free to Be You as our brand promise, we've really thought a lot about how we do authentic engagement with our fans and our guests. And we had somebody, this college student on Instagram, DM us and like was sending puns to different, we didn't know, but sending puns to like all these different brands. And she didn't have a lot of followers, and was like, "Will you have a pizza my heart?" And like we were like having this banter back and forth, and ultimately like asked us if we would be her Valentine's Day date. And we said, "Hell yeah, we'll be your Valentine's Day date." And she then like put a whole video on TikTok. It blew up, it went viral. And then I'm like, "Okay guys, but you are actually going to be her Valentine's Day, right?" And the entire team was like, "No, we can't be your Valentine's Day." I'm like, yes, you can. You're going to figure this shit out and you're going to become her Valentine's Day date. So what did we do? We invited her and all of her friends. We sent a limo. We had a pizza box filled with chocolates and a note, and we put a candlelight dinner inside a Blaze Pizza nearest her. And we did an entire Valentine's date for her and her friends, right? Like those are the things where when you authentically engage with people, like that's what Free to Be You means to me. It's like, we're not going to follow all the rules. We're going to just like, you know, why not? Right. It cost us like, I don't know, $800 or something ridiculous. Right. And like they were super into it. Like, I don't care if it blows up on social media. Like, I now have a super fan who is going to tell that story to every single person she meets and be like, "Oh my God, I had this amazing experience." And now I'm getting like, that's how you create viral moments with brands. And that's how I think you create authentic connections with your customers. So
yeah, thank you. Wow. Hearing it again is even better. So we have 0 minutes left. So time for one question. At least I want to open it up if anybody has a question for Vincent. All right.
Well, you can find me afterwards and you can ask me whatever you want. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. A pleasure to be with you and to see what you're doing. And we look forward to where Blaze is heading.
Great.
Thank you.
Hot. All right. 2 more sessions left, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming on behalf of Audacy. Amazing day. This session, we're going to get into a little more cultural marketing, a little more influencer marketing, and the conversation will be with Oakley. And if you look under your chairs, you get a pair of Oakleys. No, I'm just kidding. You don't actually. But we're going to have a great conversation anyway. So please welcome to the stage Reggie Casagrande from Oakley, Robert Ruvalcaba from Ads Mobile to moderate the conversation. Hey, everybody. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm very excited to be here with Reggie. We actually had a great conversation the other day, and Reggie is a head of strategy for global sports marketing at Oakley. And Reggie, why don't we start off with sharing a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, how it influenced your career and, what it is.
All right, I'll give the Reader's Digest version. I've worked across brand and integrated marketing for most of my career. I started my career as a creator in New York, which is kind of how I got more involved in culture, in the culture space, which kind of came a little bit out of streetwear and sneaker culture. I worked for Adidas and Converse for many years, and then also worked with Nike and several other brands from the agency side. Now I work for Oakley. I consider myself a cultural marketer. Although at Oakley, I'm a sports marketer. There's a lot of intersectionality there. So we'll get into that when we get into the questions, but I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, so during our conversation, I found something very interesting. And since I'm in the Hispanic space, I've always felt that cultural marketing or multicultural marketing has always been Hispanic, Asian, or African-American. But there's a lot of different communities. It's very diverse now. The influencer marketing space, which we'll talk about as well, has taken it to a whole nother level. And, before we move on, I wanted to ask Reggie, what is cultural marketing?
Yeah, so I think when people hear the word culture, they immediately kind of think about people or HR, because that's typically how in a corporate setting, that's how that word sort of, that's what that connotation is. But cultural marketing is really kind of an extension and an evolution of sports and entertainment marketing. It's really leveraging the world of culture to energize brands. So kind of the best example of that would be kind of what you see at Nike, what you see at Adidas with Kanye West or Pharrell Williams or Virgil Abloh, where you have a brand tap a cultural figure who is usually somebody within the design or creative space. And they usually energize product propositions, and that drives energy and relevance for a brand. So it's kind of been a newer thing that's come about sort of the last 10, maybe 15 years, sort of started in Tokyo in Japan within sort of influencer and youth culture. And it's becoming, I guess now it's becoming almost like a best practice for a lot of brands, especially brands that are interested in tapping into youth culture. So you see a lot of non-endemic brands. Sort of endemic brands would be brands that typically sell to youth culture, like sneakers or fashion brands, maybe even a consumer electronics brands. Now you start seeing car brands, you start seeing consumer packaged goods brands, beverage brands, all working with that same model. And really what they're trying to tap into is drop culture and hype culture. The way that consumers now shop, they shop based on a drop. Or at least young people, that's the way they shop. They don't want something that's mainstream. They want something limited edition, something special. So a lot of non-endemic brands are starting to kind of utilize these tools and these mechanisms to connect to culture and to connect to communities through influencers or cultural figures within that space. So that's really what it is. Some of those figures are athletes. There's usually kind of an intersectionality between, world-class athletes, people like a Kylian Mbappe or Patrick Mahomes, which we work with at Oakley. And then we also have folks like a Nigel Sylvester or an Atiba Jefferson that kind of are athletes, but sit more on a cultural tangent. They're a little bit more influencer. They're not necessarily on a podium collecting a trophy or a medal, right? The way an Olympian would be. So it's just very interesting kind of how it's sort of evolving and how, brands that are, and we can get more into that with the DEI and the representation question, but I'll go into that later.
So I have seen some of your amazing work and you've worked with global brands like Nike, Adidas, Converse, and now Oakley. In your experience, how does cultural marketing factor into most companies' marketing mix?
Well, I think it's something that, typically most brands haven't really thought about. I think a lot of big brands are starting to figure that out. A lot of bigger brands like an Apple or a Coca-Cola, they're really thinking about marketing sort of from an above the line perspective, which is, very mainstream. It's out of home. It's that type of advertising. Whereas cultural marketing is really bubbling things on the surface. So it's things happening in culture. It's things happening at a very geocentric, localized level. So you might say, oh, we want to energize, I'm making it up, Houston or Atlanta or some of these sort of second tier key cities, right? So you've got your 6 key cities in the world, which are New York, LA, Tokyo, Shanghai, London, and Paris. And then you have sort of your secondary key cities, which are Houston, Miami, Chicago, things like that. And you might have a regional play that a company wants to play off of, to get ready for the Super Bowl or something like that, where maybe that's when they launch the above the line campaign. So it's figuring out how can we tell stories on a cultural level first, where there's no performance media that goes into it. This is all organic. This is all happening within an influencer space, within a community, and things are kind of going viral within that community. So, it's things happening at that level where that level sort of influences the influencer, and then things, get blown open. A lot of times cultural marketing strategies also influence more mainstream marketing strategies because, some of the things you're doing at a very localized level might be a pilot for something larger if you want to scale an initiative. So that's usually typically how it works.
Great. So how does product factor into the conversation when you're working on cultural or sports marketing initiatives?
Yeah, so a lot of brands make product with influencers. We make a lot of product with our athletes. We call it signature product. We actually just had Patrick Mahomes drop his signature Sutro lens, the kickoff of the NFL last week. So, Nike obviously has been doing it forever. All the sports brands have been doing it for a really long time. When you think about signature shoes, signature products for athletes, that's kind of been the mainstay of sports marketing. And what typically happens is they're royalty bearing product. The athlete typically markets that product and gets a percentage of it. There's industry standards for all that. And that also sort of integrates that athlete into the community and the conversation, and it drives energy for the brand. So typically those product propositions sit at the top of a pyramid. So when you think about product, like each big company has a product proposition at a different price point, right? So Nike might have a shoe for Designer Shoe Warehouse at $50, but then at the top of the pyramid, they're going to have a collab with Sakai, and the shoe's going to be $250, and it's only going to be in very limited edition doors. And it's going to be really hard to get because there's only 5,000 of them globally. So that's typically how that works. And then that top of the pyramid product proposition halos the entire brand. So it energizes all the inline product at the bottom, and it also energizes brand awareness, top of mind, all these other KPIs that you're thinking about when you're doing this. So that's typically how it works.
It looks great. I actually got a chance to see the spot for Patrick Mahomes, and it was great that Patrick Mahomes actually had the opportunity to do to be creative and actually, do what he does, but in a different way, because he was holding his daughter and he's talking to his daughter through a letter or something like that. And we all know Patrick Mahomes as an NFL football player, but now you got to see him as a father. And I think Oakley did an amazing job with that. So I wanted to, share that with you.
I will tell the comms team, they'll be very happy about that.
And I know that you were at the forefront of influencer marketing through sports initiatives, but today influencer marketing has become a complex and niche-driven market. So in your experience, how has influencer marketing evolved from before social media?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, influencer culture was always there. It was always kind of bubbling up within communities. Typically, you had, 25 years ago, you would have people go out and do a street casting. I remember all the time whenever we were casting for campaigns, you'd go out on the street, you go to clubs, you go to, interesting places to find cool people. And now, obviously, you can find all those people on your phone in an IG in an IG post. But I think it's just the evolution and the digital transformation of influencer culture. Typically those folks were called trailblazers then. They weren't really called influencers. I think most influencers hate that word anyway. They prefer creator or something to that nature. But now it's become so niche. Obviously, there's an influencer within anything you can imagine. There's cleaning influencers, there's gamers, there's dog walking influencers, there's fashion influencers. It's very micro and macro. So I think what the challenge is for a brand is figuring out how do we want to create our strategy to sort of leverage from both a micro and a macro level, because we know from micro influencers drive conversion, macro influencers drive awareness, right? So you can't do just one or the other. So it's just interesting. I think it's just keeping up with the digital trends, the digital transformation. A lot of brands too, we have within entertainment marketing, we have our own collective. So we build a group of people for the brand that we manage those relationships. They're typically curated from different communities that we're looking to target based on whatever the initiatives is. And they might be, based on a multicultural strategy. It might be based on a certain sport that we want to integrate into. It might be based on a type of, whatever. It's completely different. But I think what's nice about having the collective is you establish a relationship with these influencers and you don't pay them. The influencers are gifted product. We call it seeding. That's one of the levers that brands use to build relationships, where they get very innovative, limited edition product, and they also get invited to special events and experiences. So for example, at Oakley, we invited a bunch of influencers to Mugello, which is a big race in Italy. And they weren't paid to go, but they were invited to come there, and they were, all expenses paid trip. They got to hang out with all the race stars and the athletes, and, and they were gifted special product. And so in exchange for that, they did a lot of posts about it. So they drive the awareness, and that's kind of how that works. And then you also have that other side of influencer marketing where you're doing paid influencer relationships, and that's a little bit more transactional and very specific. So just depends on the need.
I was just about to ask you about communities and how you speak to them, but I think you answered that with like the example of the race. So how do collaborations connect to consumers between brands and influencers?
Well, I think the collaboration is really the story, right? So you have a brand, and I'm just going to use Adidas, right? Because because I work in strategy for Oakley, we're working 2-3 years into the future, and I don't want to talk about things that are proprietary. But when I was at Adidas, the collaborator usually comes in to create the story. So there's a shoe, like when you go back to that product proposition, say, for example, it's Superstar. It's a shoe that Adidas has had for 50 years and it's boring. So what are they going to do to jazz it up? Well, they're going to put Pharrell Williams on it, right? And so that's how they jazz it up. That becomes a product collaboration. Then there's a whole story and a campaign around it. The partner typically drives the creative direction and the ideation around that story. So they're the ones communicating it to their community within their tone of voice, so that's an authentic experience for their community. So it's not a matter of, oh, we had some ad agency do the campaign and we're going to give it to him and he's just going to post it. It's really a partnership all through the product development process, and then also throughout the marketing and go-to-market process. The partner's very involved and very vested and engaged in the process. And I think that's why you see certain relationships within that space last for even decades at a time, right? Because ultimately a brand, it's very complicated to build these relationships. So when a brand finds a good partner, they want to stick with that partner. And, it becomes a very, not just driving the business, but also driving the brand, and the partner's happy. So when everyone's happy, it's successful. And when it's not happy, they get managed out.
Well, it's also doing it right. I guess, earlier we saw an example of NFL and what not to do. So I guess authenticity is key. And I'm glad you shared that. We're going to shift a little bit.
100%.
Yeah. We're going to shift a little bit and go into DEI and representation, because I think you and I had a great conversation about that. So I read a quote from an interview that you had with some publisher, and I wanted to hear more about this. So the quote says, not only is diversity integral to a healthy company culture, but it's required to win. A team's diversity needs to mirror that of the consumers we serve.
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think after working for many global brands, I've realized that, multicultural teams outperform homogenous ones, right? And that's not just having people from different cultures, but also having people from different ages, maybe even different gender identities, whatever that might be, whatever that looks like today, you are going to get a much more dynamic, solution-based group with that kind of makeup within your team, right? So I always try to hire people that aren't like me, because they're going to complement my skill set. They're going to bring something to the table. I think also, that starts internally within a company culture. Right. So that's very, very important. And you have to have a DEI strategy or a representational strategy at a company. Most companies have that now, or they're putting that together. And then also, you want that to sort of mirror the consumer that you're talking to. Right. I mean, a lot of the brands that I've worked with, we're focused on Gen Z, millennials, and now even Gen Alpha we're talking to. So, we're looking for, we're signing younger athletes. We're looking to, I think our oldest athlete at Oakley is 27. We're looking to even bring that down. We're looking to get way more female representation in our sports marketing roster, which is really important. And, just to give you an idea, Nike has 11,000 athletes on contract. So, and I'm not going to tell you, but the sports marketing budget is in the billions. So, when you think about the world stage of the Olympics coming up, track and field, the Olympics in China, there was representation for athletes because athletes connect with young folks, and brands want to speak through them. So it's just very important that we have also certain sports that need to be much more integrated. And that's something that we're faced with as a challenge.
So before we end our session, there's something personal that I wanted to ask Reggie, because I read some of the LinkedIn recommendations and, I was blown away. Everybody there was referring to her as a mentor. And I want to ask you about your personal commitment to mentorship. I personally think it's wonderful. And I just wanted to see if you can share a little bit more about, what you do.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to mentor. I've always been interested in opening the door for young people into my world, especially coming from working in a male-dominated industry. Obviously, the streetwear industry is extremely male-dominated. The sports industry is male-dominated. So one thing that's been a big thing for me is just including women, bringing women in. There are several women on my team at Oakley. We have the most diverse team at the company, which is really exciting. And it's always been kind of my MO wherever I go. So I think that, and even just folks that I've met through interviews that I wasn't able to hire for whatever reason, I've maintained a relationship with them and, try to support them and keep in touch with them. And I'm really happy when I see them succeed, and they've all gone on to incredible, they all work at amazing brands now. They're all doing really well. So it's exciting.
Well, I think you make a difference in the lives of the young people that you're mentoring. I want to thank you for your time. I think we're out of time. I was going to have you ask questions, but you can catch up with her, I guess, on the side if you need to.
I'll be up back.
Thank you.
Just learned a news. That was really cool. Hi, everybody. How are you? I need you to go like this, like shake it, because cocktail hour is coming up. And like Jeff said, there's a really awesome band that's going to play. I'm not supposed to tell you who, but that is coming up. My name is Nicole Alvarez and I work at K-Rock. They gave me Women in Entertainment. Thank you. They gave me Women in Entertainment Leadership. And it's cool because I think women in entertainment, we belong in entertainment. I mean, we're naturally entertaining. You can just ask all 12 of my personalities. But these women that I just met back there are diverse, they're funny, they're sharp, they're beautiful, and they're going to prove to you that women do indeed run the world. First, I'm going to introduce the moderator, who is not a woman. He's a lovely man, though. His name is Carl Ben Delden, VP of Software Engineering. Starista, did I say that right? Hold on, he needs a minute. Come on. The spotlight is all yours. All right, now I'm going to introduce the ladies. We've got Janelle Brown, Director of Global Franchise Planning and Studio Marketing at Paramount. Let's make some noise. Jesse Wan, Director of Brand Management, The Sims. Annabella Goff, Senior Director, CRM Peacock. And Helene Imperial, Director, CSR and Call of Duty Endowment Marketing, Activision Blizzard. I like to call them the badasses, so I turn it over to the badasses. Bye.
Hello, hello. All right, everyone comfy. Everyone having a good time out there. Been quite a day. A lot of great panels so far. Plan to finish strong. Again, we've got some all-stars up here, ladies down here making it happen. So welcome, everyone. Got a few prompts to get us started. Let's start off easy with some warm-up questions. So obviously this panel is Women in Entertainment Leadership. So first up, what's entertaining y'all?
I guess I'll start, right? I've been watching a lot of She-Hulk that I really love. I actually read the book about 10 years ago. And so I was really excited to see it come to life. And I'm a huge fan of Tatiana Maslany. So that's been something that's been keeping me entertained each Thursday on Disney Plus.
Fantastic. Awesome. Great to hear.
I can jump in. I have a 2-year-old who is endlessly entertaining, but probably not media that y'all consume. But in my spare time, I would like to say that I, consume very edifying content, but I don't. I'm like an escapist reality show kind of girl. So it's been a lot of selling the OC, partner track, and what was the last one? I can't even remember anymore, but things that help take my mind off of day-to-day life. Oh, and luxury TikTok. That is my secret. Not so secret anymore, I guess.
Nice. Same. I'm a reality junkie too. We brought Love Island to Peacock this summer. Any Love Island fans? Yeah. We it was amazing going in every day and watching it every day and going in and like around the water cooler, we would talk about it at work. So much fun. But yeah, I was gonna say the House of the Dragon, just because it's so nice to have Game of Thrones back on Sunday nights. It's like comforting pre-pandemic fare.
I agree. I caught up on that last night and now I'm up to date, which is great. I would also say, I think I picked up gaming. I mean, I do work for Activision, but I picked it up in the pandemic. And this past weekend, we launched the beta for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which was amazing. And it's going to be a very, very cool game. So I've been super excited about that as well.
Outstanding. All right. And certainly with the work that y'all do, it's very authentic to be partial to those different types of entertainment as well. So thank you for sharing. Next up, touching more on the leadership side of things, what are some recent achievements, some highlights that you and your team have worked towards recently?
I'm happy to jump in because we just had some big news last week. So my game, The Sims 4, is going free very, very soon. So we're super, super excited to bring this game to more people than ever before. So starting on October 18th, you can download the game for free and totally jump into the world and play God, basically. But this is actually many, many years in the making. We are an 8-year-old game that continues to make headlines, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do on a regular basis. What we represent to our players. I mean, the brand itself has actually been around for 20 plus years at this point. And so the fact that people are like, oh, The Sims, I remember that. We are now a multi-generational game, which is something very special in the gaming industry for those who pay attention. So I'm very, very proud. I'm very excited for this next chapter. So yeah, please check us out if you haven't already. If you've been curious, let us be your new guilty pleasure.
Absolutely. And, I've certainly kept up with EA through the years and, to, have that kind of resurgence, that resurrection, that restoration of Spore right on the brink to share with a whole new slew of people. It's very exciting. Awesome.
Yeah, I guess I can go. Honestly, I'm a bit of an operations junkie. I've been at Peacock for 3 years. We launched a couple of years ago. I got to build this team from scratch, which was really cool. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to do that again, but now we're 20 people strong, in charge of retention and engagement strategy, email and mobile messaging, analysis, audience targeting, all that fun stuff. And I think because we've grown so quickly, we've doubled in size this year, just my team. So I think being able to deliver the same level of results and the same quality of work, knowing that we have all these new people onboarding and everyone has to learn processes and it's happened so quickly is something that I'm proud of. Like, I'm really proud of my team.
Absolutely. And growing, and not to mention all the challenges that we faced in these last couple of years. That's outstanding accomplishment. Thank you.
Yeah. One other thing I think that's pretty unique to my role, I think within brand marketing is how do we weave in social impact and what does that mean? So on Call of Duty, I work on the Call of Duty endowment where I'm the director of marketing. And this year we launched the first ever in-game charity run. So how do we make something that's like really unique? Everyone has done a charity run, a fun run, but how do we make it unique to Call of Duty? And so we challenged players inside of Call of Duty Warzone to run 100 kilometers. And Activision Blizzard would donate $1 for every 10 kilometers run in the game, up to $1 million. And so we had a 9-day activation. We had 2 million kilometers run, which was about halfway to the moon in terms of how many players participated, which was amazing. And so we just saw engagement from the community in ways that we haven't seen before. And I think it's really coming across in terms of our brand ethos and also how we leverage our brand for good as well.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's very inspiring to bring everyone together like that. And, such an interesting compliment and opportunity for engagement with the community. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up. One thing that I'm really proud of that my team was able to accomplish this year is we worked on this tiny independent movie called Top Gun Maverick. And being able to, bring it to theaters, bring it to life. And my group specifically works in consumer products. So being able to support the overall campaign with product for fans, and they're so passionate about it, has been really exciting. So, and the fact that the film is so successful in the end after, a really solid runway, getting it to theaters has been really, really gratifying.
Yeah, Top Gun 2. Did anyone see that movie out there? Anyone see
It's one of the few I like.
It was good. It was a good one.
I made a point to see that one in IMAX, and I was not disappointed. Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. And actually, I think a couple of these things kind of lead into the next question, which is, what are some of the emerging trends in the industry that you're most excited about? We talked about bringing sport, taking it free, and kind of reaching new audiences with that. We talked about the Call of Duty drive. So by all means, what are some other complementary trends that you are seeing in the industry?
Ooh, can I go? I'm also a new technology buff. So AR and VR for sure. Like, I'm waiting for that time where we have the holodeck, like on Star Wars. I think it's going to be, or Star Trek. Sorry, that was blasphemous. I can't wait for that. I got my first VR headset this year and it's been so much fun to play on it. And the metaverse in general, like, how is that going to change interactions with people? And like, even from a social media standpoint, how are we going to move? And then, honestly, a podcast is a source material. I love seeing that in entertainment because we had Dr. Death on Peacock and now we're doing season 3 on Peacock. And I'm obsessed with the story and just finding that inherent base of fans through different kinds of IP is pretty cool. Same thing with gaming.
Yeah, no, it's very similar. I was going to say, 70% of Americans believe that companies need to take action to support issues that aren't related to everyday business operations. And so how do we make sure that everything we're doing is really kind of about brand purpose? And what does that brand purpose mean in terms of issues that are happening in the world around us as well? So something I'm excited about in terms of philanthropic marketing and social impact is purpose is here to stay. And it's those people who can really harness it that are most successful brand marketers.
It's a great point. Thank you very much. Did y'all have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I covered it.
All right, awesome.
Great job.
I think we've heard a lot about, kind of the, the purpose and the value of purpose, and really the power of the effects that purpose affects on the people who engage with this media, and, use that immense power for good. So wonderful to hear. And, certainly finding new channels, new source material, as you said, for telling great stories. There's a lot of great ones to be told out there. And I'm going to turn the script a little bit, and we'll hear a little bit more about y'all's stories. So we're going to ease into that. What are some influences that have been instrumental to your own career trajectory? This could be everything from certain role model. Maybe you just heard a really amazing album or saw a great movie and you thought, that's I want to be in that. I want to be a part of that. But certainly, whether it's personal, whether it's entertainment, what are some of your influences?
I can jump in from that one. I would say that kind leaders, empathetic leaders have really made a indelible mark in kind of how I've conducted myself now that I am in more of a leadership role. There was a time in my career where, I just felt like everybody was, out to get each other. And it was just this very various uncomfortable environments. And those were hard times because I'm like, well, can I really be that's just not my baseline. Like, I want to help. I want to be a part of a team. I want to feel a part of a team and I want to feel supported. And so I know this is so it sounds so cliche, but it really is. It's like, how do I want to be in a place where I feel like I can show up exactly the way that I want to, which is with kindness and with empathy. And I've been able to do that in my current role, which is extremely refreshing. And it's been very encouraging because I've actually been rewarded for showing up in that way versus being dinged for it or having it taken advantage of. And so, being able to see examples of that at various points in my career have really helped me say okay, that's my North Star. That's who I want to be, and I'm not going to show up any other way. So yeah, that's basically, it's no specific person. It's just the behavior. It's just something I've gravitated toward.
I love that answer. For me, about 15 years ago, probably less than that, like 13, 14 years ago, I started learning about media conversions. I was working at a science association in DC doing CRM. And learning about the science behind some of the technology that was coming, like high-speed internet, like really high-speed internet that we haven't even gotten to yet. And then reading books like Media Convergence by Henry Jenkins about new media and fan engagement. Like, for instance, in 2001, Warner Brothers was sending cease and desist letters to 12-year-olds who were writing fan fiction online about Harry Potter. Cut to now, that's crazy. But the idea that was going to change marketing and customer engagement, and I really was interested in new media. And moving to LA, I came here for grad school, and afterwards I was working at Disney and seeing how things were changing so rapidly from legacy media to new media and wanting to be a part of that. And kind of just all of that coming together so nicely really, sent me on kind of a love fest for what I do now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I can wrap up in terms of what my inspiration and what's helped me is that some mentors and advocates and sponsors. So I didn't know how important that was at the beginning of my career. I sort of mistook work for school and was like, I'm gonna work hard and get an A or whatever the corporate equivalent of an A is, and it's gonna be great. And that's not actually how the world works anymore. No one really prepared me for that. So I've been fortunate to have mentors, sponsors, people sort of pull me aside, help groom me and push me out of my comfort zone and just give me helpful tips to help navigate and sort of get me to where I am today. And that's something that I didn't realize I needed. So I'm really thankful for all of those, men and women along the way.
So kind of bridging that gap from, excelling in school to how do you excel in the industry?
Exactly.
Awesome. Awesome. And, I thought it was really interesting, Jesse, what you said about, the importance of being able to show up as you are, because we've talked a lot about authenticity today in a brand sense, but also being authentic to oneself. And, that's where a lot of that inspiration comes from, being able to show up empowered and, be able to pass it on. So thank you. Thank you very much. All righty. So now, we've got Peacock, we've got Paramount, we've got EA. Oh goodness.
And Activision.
Thank you.
Two gaming companies.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew it. And but it's something that I've seen in both the TV, movies, as well as the gaming is streaming, the trend towards streaming and bringing all of this different content into a platform. So with streaming and other kind of digital distribution services instantly putting media at consumer fingertips, what are some of the ways that you still see opportunities for kind of refining the model or differentiating it? I think we've talked about some of advertising becoming a regular part of some platforms. But I'm interested to hear y'all's thoughts on, where we go from here.
Yeah, I can jump in. I would say, and speaking specifically on the Paramount and Paramount Plus of it all, I think what's nice is that they've been really able to differentiate themselves as a sort of one stop for live news, sports, and a mountain of entertainment. And in terms of content, I feel like we are at peak content. It's everywhere. There are only so many hours of the day. So I think it's important that the content is really high quality. And that's something that, I'm excited to see, come to life across all streaming platforms. But I think that Paramount's doing a really strong job of that and being able to, repurpose franchises. We have Yellowstone in 1883 on Paramount Plus, and really being able to bring that to life is something that I think is exciting. And they've been able to sort of differentiate themselves in a space that's starting to grow more and more crowded in the streaming world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And kind of on that note, I think people are fighting for people's attention right now, right? So it's all about how you break through and what does that look like. So in one regard, we can break through with social impact and causes. In other, we can break through really cool commercial content that we're selling in the game. And what does that look like? But I think it's kind of making sure that you've diversified your content. So you're meeting where your audience is where they are, and that the content is engaging to them so that they keep coming back for more as well.
I'm going to put a slightly finer point on both of your very good points there. But I think personalization as well, without it feeling like work for the person, like the people that you're trying to, it's like, I don't really want to sort through and say like, let me teach the algorithm this, that, or the other thing. Yeah. It kind of has to be baked into the experience overall. I mean, my game, The Sims, like we're all about customization. It's what people come to us for. It's like, I want to build my dream home. I want to build my dream person. I want to build this weirdo. I want to build, you can build all kinds of things with our game, but it doesn't feel like work because it's part of the play. It's part of the experience. And so that personalization, I think, of those experiences and people being able to curate what it is that they actually want to see and consume, I think that's really how you distinguish yourself, where it's like, it just feels seamless. It just feels like a part of it. And so I think that's really where you could stand out in this, I am also overwhelmed by the volume of content. Like I said, as a new mom, I was like, I don't know, I can spend my time in a million different ways. I just want somebody to serve me something that I'm just going to be like, yeah, that's the thing, without it feeling creepy. There's that border, oh, you know me too well. Sometimes the Instagram algorithm, I'm like,
It's a fine line to walk.
It's
fine
very
line
fine
between
line. It's very
convenient
fine.
and
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah.
Certainly. Well, thank you very much. Did you have anything else to add to that?
I was going to touch on personalization. So
Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much. We've certainly dealt with some challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic, and it seems like we've more or less reached a turning point to a certain extent. But what are some of the changes that y'all have observed during that time, and what are some of the effects that you see to be lasting effects of that experience?
Yeah, I can start. I would say my role is unique in the sense that it's really at a crossroads of theatrical movies and then consumer products, and similar to what the Mattel panel said earlier about how it really shifted buying behavior and purchasing behavior from their core demographic or core shopper. That's something that my company, we really had to pivot, and we've been really nimble in something that we were able to innovate. So for instance, the slate changed. We're trying to also hit these on-shelf dates to align with the larger campaign. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the sort of life cycle of product, but it takes anywhere between 18 and 24 months to make one plastic toy. So that's how far out we're working in general. And now we're working a bit further to meet any sort of supply chain issues and things that are coming over on a boat from China. And so it's just really having to plan even further than before and making sure that, we are still aligned with what the studio is doing on their end, so that, at the end of the day, we are ready, our product is ready to go, the fans are ready to purchase, and the movie is hitting theaters. So I'm really proud of what we've been able to do to be nimble and really start adjusting to this, current post-COVID world.
Oh, absolutely. And, we think about all the supply chain issues that were experienced during that time, and, global consumer products, all of these complementary products with these grand productions, that's quite a lead time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Congratulations on being nimble and keeping with it.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
I actually really wanted to answer this question because I think that COVID has really done a number on the video game industry in like really interesting ways. But for us personally in gaming, and you might have a very similar experience here, but it really demonstrated how important gaming was to millions of people around the world. Like when the world shut down, gaming was a lifeline for a lot of people to still reconnect with their friends and family that are far away. Borders were closed. It was a scary time. People needed an escape. My game, The Sims, like people recreated weddings that they couldn't have. People recreated graduations where they couldn't walk across the stage. And this was all happening, even though our game isn't like you don't play online with anybody. We are like one of the few games that you still just single player, you're in your room. People, just called each other. They recreated their families, like people that they missed, people that they lost. Like that's, that to me, like sometimes gaming has kind of been one of those like, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of like, weird kids or something like that. Like that's so not the case anymore. Like gaming is mainstream. That is here to stay. From a company perspective, though, I think it's been really interesting, just kind of speaking as my experience as a new mom during the pandemic, literally 3 months into the pandemic, I had my baby. But I think what the pandemic has done is really kind of opened up companies like EA's like eyes to, hey, people have families, life is messy, like flexible, like, work from home hours, like that sort of thing. I think people are way more understanding and really has, I think, leveled the playing field in many ways. I know I want to acknowledge that the pandemic was challenging for a lot of people, but like in some ways, I think the culture has changed in a really positive way. Like I said, I feel like the playing field is a little bit more level now that people have a better understanding of like what outside life and work life is a little bit fuzzy now. And people are more respectful of that, which I greatly appreciate as, a new mom.
No, completely. I think gaming is mainstream media now. And I think before everyone thought it was a niche thing that people did. And I think one of the things that we saw specifically is that over the pandemic, people were playing games and they had a specific time that they were going to meet with all of their friends and talk to their friends and communicate with them. And it's a 5 p.m. on Tuesdays. And we're still seeing that now as things open back up. What does that look like? And how gaming was really used as a communication and social tool when people couldn't leave their homes. And globally, even when we're still having some restrictions, we're still seeing that now. And so I think it's really opened the door for gaming in general and also for people to be more connected through gaming as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Peacock, I guess, was in a unique situation because we launched in 2020. And we've all seen the numbers. Streaming video services did really well during that time period because everyone was at home and we surpassed all of our goals and it was great. I think for me, seeing how the streaming wars pan out and what's next is going to be exciting. But also, honestly, my own personal experience has almost eclipsed what we've seen from our consumers just because we were so new. About I think 3/4 of our workforce started working from home. They've never been in the office. We all went back to the office last week, so it's been real. But yeah, I think I think Youth Relay said it best, but for me, it's sort of that transition period that we've been in flux every year. The first year looked nothing like the second, looked nothing like the third. So it's that constant change that's been interesting to navigate.
Right on. Thank you all very much. And so with those changes and from kind of where we are right now, we talked about, some of the considerations with respect to the platform, but I guess in the even bigger picture, what are some of the challenges and opportunities you see for marketers in the present entertainment environment, maybe on the outlook for the future?
Ooh, I want to take this one. So I'm a CRM marketer. Data is my life. I love it. I love addressable data. I love learning about our consumers and cutting them up in cohorts and all that fun stuff. And I think, especially in entertainment, as we move from legacy media to new media, like a film studio or a TV network, they don't own the relationship with the consumer. They're not a direct-to-consumer company, but we are starting to move that way more ubiquitously. And having that data at our fingertips and being able to really know our consumers, not only from like a content perspective of knowing what they're interested in and what content we should be providing on platform, but just the way that we should be speaking to them or what they're I mean, because we track literally everything that you do on service and everything you do with our digital marketing. So we can get pretty refined in terms of what our messaging looks like. And that's really exciting for someone that works in CRM and entertainment, knowing that we're going into this new media space. So yeah, that's been the most exciting part. And I think as we move forward and things become even more digital, you know, the legacy media companies are going to be able to adopt that, and it's going to be really cool for marketers.
Awesome. Well said. Well said. Did anyone else have anything to add on that? All right.
feel like she
Awesome.
killed it.
Yeah, that was a great answer.
Well done.
Great, Annabella.
All righty. Well, we do want to save some time for questions. I'm just getting the 10 right there, but I do have a couple closer questions. So, bringing it back around, what is some advice that you would give to women who are working in or trying to get into the entertainment industry?
Yeah, I can start with this one. It really is about mentorship for me. I've had mentors throughout my career that have been instrumental, even from just being an intern at the State Department a long time ago. But now, I have a mentor who's my boss now. And what does that look like? It's a really different thing having someone really elevate you and say, take my name off of this. You ran this campaign. This is about you and you getting credit for this. And so I think it's a really cool experience, but you need to find people throughout, like, look at leaders who you say, I want to be like this. And what does that look like? And kind of find those mentors who can really help and support you throughout your career.
That's a good answer. For me, it's keep on top of industry trends. I mean, entertainment's changing so quickly, making sure you know what's happening now and what's happening next, and making sure your goals are aligned with that. And then asking a ton of questions. We have this thing at Peacock called the First Five. I tell all of our newbies, especially the younger ones, like, we're pretty open to talking to you, even at the senior level. It's a first 50. Set up 50 interviews with people, ask them about their career trajectories, ask them how they got here, what they're doing now. And like, for instance, I've had 17 years of experience in CRM and like 13 in entertainment marketing. I could give you a one-on-one course on what CRM and entertainment is like. So just knowledge, just get as much knowledge as possible.
I would say try on different hats. Even if one doesn't really fit quite right. I spent 5 years or so probably in digital marketing. I'm like, this isn't my jam. I don't really want to do this for the rest of my career. But when I walked away from it and when I was finally back in kind of a brand role, what I discovered was that my time doing that made me a much sharper marketer in general. My partners who I work with in digital marketing appreciate that I have just enough knowledge to be dangerous. On days that they're annoyed with me, it's not great, but on days that they need me on their side, the fact that I can speak a little bit of their language goes a long way. So even though I didn't end up pursuing that as like my main career path, the fact that I do know a little bit about it has been extremely helpful. So don't be discouraged. There's a ton of transferable skills. Even if you feel like you're not on the right path, I promise you that knowledge will come in, very, very usefully someday.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I'll be really knocking it out of the park with your answers. Just to wrap it up, and this is sort of entertainment industry specific, but relationships. I think building relationships, maintaining them, having a friend before you need a friend, and it doesn't have to be this grand sort of gesture all the time. It could be, commenting on someone's LinkedIn post or reaching out for a coffee, or now that we're virtual, I think that's really helped in a lot of ways, developed relationships, raise your visibility. So that's something that's paid off for me, is having really strong relationships that I can call on if it's for advice, if it's for, a recommendation, and it works both ways. They'll come to me for help too. And I always try to, return the favor. So I think having solid relationships and maintaining them is really key.
Yeah, I would say never burn a bridge in this industry because it's so
small.
incestual.
Yeah. It's
a very good friend of mine just went to another streamer and he's now the boss of someone who's another good friend of mine. And her old boss is now my boss.
Oh, wow.
It's very incestual.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And you know what? I do have one more before we open it up to questions. And I think I heard maybe some things that, probably resonate with this next question that we've already touched on, which is what do you believe are some of the greatest virtues for leading in the entertainment industry? I think we heard a lot of the things y'all touched on seems like part and parcel, but is there anything else y'all wanted to add on top of that?
I just want to make a note on culture, just especially during the pandemic when we're all working from home, maintaining your culture if it's a positive one and making sure you're enforcing that has made a world of difference. Even if within my small team, making sure that they still feel supported and we've maintained a small company culture as we've grown that's been huge. Being a strong people leader, I think that's important, especially during the pandemic as well. And then finally, I'm sort of huge on integrity. Like that's my number one. So living your values for sure.
I would say the grass isn't always greener, meaning, and what I mean by that is like I've oftentimes like been on the outside looking in at various companies and their successes and all of that. And it's like, gee, they must really have their shit together. You know, it's like they know what they're doing. But the thing is, honestly, all of us are just kind of trying to figure it out. Sometimes you get lucky and you break new ground and it's amazing. But guess what? We only talk about the things that worked. We never talk about the things that didn't, that are on the cutting room floor, never saw the light of day, or just really fell flat. And so if there's ever a day where you're feeling like, oh, I'm a total imposter, I have no good ideas, whatever it is, we're all just figuring it out. Nobody has it all figured out. Like, believe me, when I was like outside looking at EA, I was like, oh, wow, like they're really doing like this, and this. Like, nope, same set of challenges everywhere I've gone. Just, you know, slightly different angles on that. But yeah, grass isn't always greener.
I would say just overall, I think especially working in the social impact space, right? We work on really challenging issues that are facing the world and the globe, and change is a long, arduous process and it can take a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I think there's some days where you're like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to fix it. I think this is the end. And what does it look like? But stay the course, you know, to me, attitude is everything as well. So making sure that you really are putting in the time, having a good attitude about it, but you stay the course, it will all work out. And even if the change is only so small, it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I love that. Stay the course. And attitude is a really important piece. I would say making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. And even if you're the leader, understanding that you don't always have the answers and that's okay. But you know, maybe someone else on your team does. So understanding where to fill in those gaps. So you're not the only one. Like, I know I don't know everything, but I make sure that I lean on those around me who are the subject matter experts in their area. So I think that's something that's really important, is to make sure that you don't feel as though you have to have all the answers.
Absolutely, because as a leader, you're building your team, right? So that's I saw a lot of head nodding across each of those. So I think you know, I'd certainly say all of those are virtues of leadership, and you know, I saw a lot of agreement on those. So thank you all for sharing that, and I think anyone would be well served to take those thoughts to heart. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the audience. We do have a couple minutes left if anybody would like to ask some questions. Going once, going twice.
I saw that Days of Our Lives has moved to Peacock, which is crazy because the characters are the same as 18 years ago when I had my daughter and got to be at home. I would imagine that the audience, though, is aged. And so how has that transition been for that audience to go from being able to just watch it on the local channel or whatever to having to adapt to a streaming service?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Queen's death was announced and interrupted the last Days of Our Lives on NBC, and that they were very upset about that, and rightly so. So it wasn't a great start, but it's been a lot of growth on Peacock in the last week with the transition that's happened. Honestly, it's funny when we're talking about connections and who we know in the industry. I asked a friend of mine that works at Freevee at Amazon, you know, you guys had Judge Judy move over recently, and it's the same kind of audience similarly. And how did you guys handle it? And we're like, you know, there's a lot of issues with an older audience getting online with registration, setting up their profile, that sort of thing. I think Peacock did a pretty good job of taking that to heart. We set up phone lines for our consumers to be able to call in and just say, what am I doing here? And so I think it remains to be seen. They're such diehard fans. It's almost like cult status to look at them, they're going to find it and they're going to find a way. It's just a matter for us as marketers and especially in consumer engagement, making sure it's as frictionless as possible. But so far, so good. And I also think that, you know, pre-days moving to Peacock, we had a couple of specials, Days of Our Lives Beyond Salem, and a Christmas special. So we already had an existing base that have come over to see us, but it's nice to see in volume how many people have joined Peacock.
Fantastic. Well, I do believe our time is up. Thank you all so much for joining again today. Can we give them all a round of applause one more time? Ready? Oh.
Thank you. No.
Right, that's it. So I think this is where you say the bar's open. But if you guys could go out that way and around would be awesome. Band's coming in to set up and we'll be back in here shortly. So thanks, everyone.